of the group is in the chat.
Sweet. Thank you, Mike.
See you.
How's it going, Ron? Long time no see.
Hey, Carson, how are you?
I'm great.
What's
I miss
up,
seeing
bro?
you at meetup.
I'm trying to switch to computer because I can't hear anything.
Hey, your connections. Yeah. How's it going, man? So actually, funny story. Elijah Blunt, the guy who was just talking, he's one of my buddies from church a while back, and he just started working at a title company. So he's contact at a title company too. Reach out to him if you have any questions. Hopefully he can answer them.
Which one?
I don't know if you got kicked off, but yeah, Ron, I was gonna say I miss seeing everyone at meetups. Are you having a meetup?
Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow night, Jamie LeClaire and I are hosting a meetup in Romeo at crap. I think I know that address.
Throw it in the chat when you find it.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's a Airbnb / kind of like a conference room just outside of downtown Romeo that we own together. So we decided, you know what, let's just have a meetup and kind of low key. If you're afraid of COVID, don't come. Wear a mask if you want. All of that stuff. Just come as you think that you want to be. We're not going to require anything. If you want to bring your own food and drink, go ahead. We're not going to supply any of that. It's obviously for liability reasons, especially for alcohol if you want to bring it. But anyway,
I'll be selling beer
and hot dogs, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a baseball game breakout or something.
I'll make $1,000.
Okay. Let me put that in there.
All right. Carson, you want to kick us off?
Yes, I would love to. So I'll start with a disclaimer. We did this last week. We're not attorneys. We're not anything special. Don't take anything we say as legal advice, anything like that. We just are giving you a generalization of everything. Don't take that, apply it to something else. Every situation is different. Don't listen to us. We don't know what we're talking about. Anyway, so I want to introduce us real quick. I'm Carson Demick. I know a lot of you guys. I definitely see some new faces. I've been wholesaling for about a year and a half actively. I started dabbling with it about 2 years ago. Running a pretty consistent business right now. I do a lot of business with Mike Heeter, the other host here, and Todd Chunn. And so that's kind of somebody's mic is echoing really bad. But anyway, that's kind of really short my story. So I've been in it for about 2 years. I'm in Flint. I do a ton of business in Flint, Genesee County, Saginaw. I connected with Michael Heeter, the other host here. He's in Saginaw. He lives in Saginaw, has connections in Saginaw. He's been doing it for about a year and a half as well. We kind of we're in a really similar stage about 6 months ago, both kind of wanting to do this really seriously, but not really pursuing it. And we ended up linking up with Todd. I called one of Todd's bandit signs about 8 months ago. Yeah. And we hadn't talked in a year. And I was like, hey, he was like, let's start meeting and cold calling together. So us three started cold calling together like every single day. We still meet as much as we can. I think Mike's at Todd's office right now. Obviously, I'm out of town. And Todd is the Detroit guy. Everything you ever could think of that you need in Detroit, Todd is your guy for. Don't ask him for any dumpsters, but anything else, ask Todd. He's the guy. I mean, he just knows his way around Detroit. He's doing a ton of deals out there. He was my first mentor. And here we are, 2 years later, crushing it and doing a ton of business together. So I don't know if there's the only other thing I'll say is I'm super excited about this meeting. I was thinking about possibly skipping it. I'm not going to lie. And then I remembered that we were having Ron on, and for mostly purely selfish reasons, I was like, there's no way I'm missing this meeting. I actually met Ron at the first real estate meetup I ever went to. And he's our guest speaker for today. I met him at the first. I was super green. He probably remembers it. I don't know if he does, but I didn't know what I was talking about. And I was just like, and I could tell from how he was talking that he was super successful in doing a lot of business. And so I was nervous to talk to him. And I, quickly learned that he was, he's in Wayne and Oakland County mainly. Is that correct, Ron?
Mainly Oakland, but we'll do anything in the 5 counties for sure.
Okay. And he's got a really strong buyers list. He has a ton of connections out here. So that's why we brought him on for this. We're talking about buyers, dispositions, all that kind of stuff. So he's definitely the guy to go to. I mean, between him and Todd, they cover the bottom half of Michigan. It's crazy the amount of connections they have. So definitely throughout this meeting, ask your questions because Ron's busy, I'm busy, Todd, Mike's busy. We might not be able to get to them through the week, but this, the last 45 minutes of this meeting will be dedicated to answering questions that you have for us or Ron. I would like you guys to ask Ron the questions. He's, like I said, he knows a ton about dispositions, how to sell deals, and obviously how to acquire them as well, but we're focusing on selling today. So yeah, that's about it. Ron, if you wanted to introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. My name's Ron Walraven. I'm from Oakland County. Been in real estate, had a license since '99. I jumped into REOs first out of the gate in '99. My previous life, I was an auto mechanic for 20 years, which the REO space kind of lends itself to property management because I was a shop rat most for my automotive career. So driving you around on a weekend looking at houses isn't necessarily what I like doing. So the REO space worked well for my personality. I built that up into a team of 9 people up through 2007 and 8. And then of course, a lot of us know what happened in 08 and 09 with the REO market and just things imploding. And then the whole market turned into short sales. Again, like I said, I'm not a retail guy, so I kind of floundered for a couple of years and then reinvented myself into a wholesaler off of the list of people who bought 3,000 plus houses from me through that REO run. I got my Detroit experience from all of that. I, like Todd, know most streets in Detroit, been up and down at least all of them at least once, and know block numbers in my sleep. Streets, east side, west side, lower central. I don't know the Detroit market like neighborhoods like Todd does, because in my day they were just street numbers and street names. So North End, that type of stuff doesn't resonate with me as easily. The last 3, 4, 5 years I had partnered up. We became expert marketing people, postcards, things like that. And then COVID certainly has been a hassle for us. As a wholesaler, the rehabbers hunkered down in March and April. That it really took a lot of effort to start to keep selling houses. But as we all know, when everything opened back up in late May, that crazy cat bounced off the ground and just took off running. And it's been crazy on the retail side, like nobody could have ever predicted. The rate stayed low. All the pretty houses are selling like crazy, and all these rehabbers kicked themselves for not buying all those houses back in April when they should have.
Right.
I've been doing this 20 plus years. I got 5 people that work on our team now. We try to do anywhere from 100 to 150 houses a year. So we didn't hit that in 2020. We ended up only doing 90. And I realize that that's certainly a huge number for most. But it was a struggle this year to keep everything working and all of that stuff for the year. So
You had
I'm just thinking.
Hey, Ron, in 2020, you had a lot of business changes, right?
Yeah, I ended up having to. I had 2 full-time acquisition guys in the ground. I had to lay one of them off, and I took one of them and raised it up to an operations guy, and then put myself back in the field as the acquisition person. So right now, my role, even as the owner, is acquisitions and dispositions. I do both. We just started our Facebook campaigns back up today. So if you see Waymark Homes in your feed, that's us. And don't click on the button because that cost me about $30 a click. So unless you want to sell me a house, don't push the button. Same with Google. If we happen to show up in your Google feed, which started back up today, don't push the button. Send them to your friends and have them do it and put their houses in there. So that'll cost me about $120 a click for you to do that. So anyway, we're trying to get our presence back. We've been texting and cold calling recently. I've learned that I love texting, by the way. I always like to communicate texting. That's usually how I like to be communicated with. But I've realized using these online platforms to text people massively is like so fun because they just like F off and who are you and how did you get my number? Oh, by the way, I want to sell my house. Oh yeah. And then you get all excited like, hey, there's one. Anyway, I've learned to like doing that. And I've actually honed my acquisition skill by reacting to them properly, right? Or just drawing them in. It's really kind of raised the level of awareness on how to do that. So.
Is your goal when you're texting, and I don't want to ask any more questions about this because it's off topic, but I'm really curious. Is your goal to get them on the phone when you're texting, or do you just keep them text as long as you need to for that?
Well, I go back and forth with them long enough so that they want the phone call, where it becomes like the only way to finalize it is to call them. And then I ask them, hey, is it okay if I have my sales lead named Tom call you? I let them respond to that. So that, because I know that as I've been texted before with other things myself, I don't want to be engaged on the phone, right? And we've got ours set up. So if you actually hit that texting number and call it back, it goes to voicemail. It doesn't come to me direct because they're usually angry if they're calling you. They're usually mad at you.
Right.
So I don't want to listen to them yell at me. I'll just delete their voicemail and take them off the list.
Right. Do you use, I know a lot of people use Lead Sherpa for texting. I know there's a ton of them out there. Do you use any specific ones that you?
Yeah, we're using Lead Sherpa.
Lead Sherpa,
And
yeah.
the reason we do that is because of the skip tracing's all kind of together.
Yeah.
So you can upload the list, skip trace it, send it to the campaign. It's all kind of seamless. So there's not a couple extra steps in there with a spreadsheet that you got to re-upload to whatever program you're using. So.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll just go over what wholesaling is for those of you who don't know. We had a question about that earlier. So the process of wholesaling, and it's really simple. You find a motivated seller, somebody who wants to sell their property at a discount, and you put the house under contract to purchase, just like you would with a realtor, with like anything else. So you might let's say you tell the homeowner who's losing their house to foreclosure, I'll give you $100,000 for your house. Instead of going forward with that purchase and buying the house, you find an investor and you sell that house to that investor for a markup. So you might tell the investor $110,000, and then you assign your rights to purchase it to that investor for a $10,000 assignment fee. So that's how wholesalers make their money. So we market to distressed property owners, get houses under contract to buy, and upsell them to investors. So if you don't have any investors to upsell your houses to, you're not going to make any money. So
Call me,
Todd.
I was gonna
Call
say,
Todd. Yeah.
Call Todd.
Yeah. So that's, and I wanted to share, and that's really brief. If you have more questions about the process, there's always more you can learn about wholesaling. And that's what makes it hard to get started, because everyone wants to know what they're doing before they start doing it. You'll never know what you're doing with wholesaling. There's always deals that, Mike and I ran into a situation this morning. I was talking to him out of the chairlift, and I was like, dude, what's going on? And we had a situation with the house I was closing on. Never dealt with this before. Mike, it was crazy, but you just have to get into it to learn the details. The gist of it is you're finding cheap houses and you're selling them for more money to investors who are either going to flip them or rent them out or do whatever with them. So today's obviously topic is dispositions. And I had a really cool, like a perfect example of why this is so important happen. Let's see, it was on Tuesday because the title companies were open Monday. Tuesday, I sold a house, and this was a house I owned. But what had happened was I had decided to buy it as a rental, and I always have other houses under contract too. But after I closed on that house, I decided I wanted to buy another house instead. So because I have such a big list of investors, I shot that house out that I had already purchased to my wholesale buyers list because they don't care. All they want is the house. Whether it's a wholesale deal or it's a deal you own, if it's a good deal for them, it's a good deal for them. So I bought this house for $19,500 about 2 weeks ago. It was actually longer than that. It was the end of December. But I decided to sell that house and put that money into one of the deals I had under contract to buy because it would have made a better rental for me. So I shot an email out to my investors list, and we're about to talk about how to find these investors. And I said, you can have this house for $31,900 essentially. Within a day, I had somebody go to the title company, put a deposit down, and sign an agreement to buy that house from me for $31,900. So I could have listed that with a realtor. I could have done, for sale by owners, Zillow. There's other ways to find investors, but I was able to, within a week's notice, just set that, get that house gone that I had bought and I was going to rehab and transfer my funds over because I knew a ton of investors who like this area. So it was crazy to me. And so I closed on that house at 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, closed on the other house at 10 o'clock, the one I wanted to transfer my funds into because, like I said, it was a better rental for me. So I just thought that was a cool example because I know we have people on here who don't wholesale, like investors and people who bought from me before. So there's value to having a buyer's list regardless of what you do in real estate. You never know when you're going to need an investor to buy a house from you. So with that, we'll get started. Like I said, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat. Please don't unmute yourself. Maureen will mute you. And then we'll get to them as soon as we can. So the first question for you, Ron, is because we've built up to this point of how to find your first wholesale deal, how to get under contract. If you have a deal under contract and you have no buyers, how would you go about beginning to find those buyers for those wholesale deals? What are the kind of steps you would take to start building that list?
Well, let's pre-assume that you have access to the MLS, or if you don't, get yourself hooked up to the realtor that does. When I first started wholesaling, not necessarily had compiled my buyers list into some sort of form or some sort of email blast, is you can go on to, you might even be able to do this on Zillow. I'm not sure that you can or can't, but take and put that property on the map and then pull a 30-day cash sale houses around it. So assuming that you've got a house under contract, you find the cash buyers that are around that property, and then you can actually find, if it's an LLC, you can actually find those people, through the state website. You can get their names. Generally, it has a phone number on that form that you can see on the state. The first couple deals that I wholesale, that's how I started, by getting a specific cash buyer that likes that particular neighborhood. That's just easy, simple. Even if you have your realtor that maybe you forged a relationship with already, to pull that kind of name list for you. Like I said, I'm not sure if Zillow can do it. I assume you probably could. And I think that another tactic is actually call the realtor that might have sold the house around there and ask them if they got buyers investors that they've worked with. I think that's the easiest way if you don't have a list already. Now, with all that being said, in my day, with 2012-ish, when I first started, Facebook was a nothing muffin. Facebook is a big player these days, obviously, is to take that property that you have under contract, put that address into 2 or 3 Facebook pages in the area. And I guarantee you, if you have a deal, the buyers will find you. And then as those people call you or DM you or whatever, then you just start building that list up, and you can save those people. what I've done recently that's worked really well, because things tend to be hot, and just instead of having all of the grief that goes with multiple people calling you, is to bring that investor with you to that appointment. Anybody ever thought of that? Nobody thinks of that because they want their deals a secret until they really want to sell it, right? And then when you can't sell it, no, now it's not a secret anymore. Don't make that house a secret. So once you kind of build up your good buyer base, guys that you can trust, is take that guy with you on the appointment. And while he's at the appointment, he goes in as a contractor, and then goes out the house, or out of the house to his car, drives around the corner, runs his numbers, and then texts you with what his number is. And then you negotiate backwards from there with that homeowner. I started doing that about 6-8 months ago. I've literally sold houses within the same 20 minutes without ever walking out the door with the seller. And I've got 3 or 4 guys that I know won't mess with me. They don't negotiate with me. I know what their number is, so I don't negotiate back with them to drive it up a little bit. I just tell the seller, my contractor just called me and said, this is where we need to be. Is this a number you can live with? And most of the time, when you're being transparent with them in regards to what you're doing, and the fact that you can actually buy that house in the next week, just like you're saying you were going to do, you'd be surprised on how you can get a better discount when that seller's looking you in the eye and you've got some confidence in your eyes that says you're going to sell it. Because when you're kind of hemming and hawing about it, well, I got to get all my guys to come look at it, and those sellers smell that.
Yep.
Because the ones that want to sell, you're not the only guy they're called. You're not the only one. And price isn't always their hot spot. That's not always their hot spot.
Yeah.
That's huge. And even like myself, the difference between me a year and a half ago and me now is that I know my numbers well enough where I can be confident and get a deal. Whereas I used to not know that. So having a buyer who pre-commits to buying it is going to make you, especially if you look 18 like I do. And I started out when I was 18. So if you look young and you're sounding not confident, they're not gonna trust you to buy their house. If you know that investor is going to give you 10,000 more than what you are offering to the seller, you're not only gonna sound confident, but you're gonna be confident and be aggressive to get that deal. So that's huge. But like he said as well, that's maybe after your first deal or two, once you have trusted buyers. I've never had a buyer really go behind my back, but you definitely want to make sure it's someone who's not going to beat you up with the price, and somebody that you can trust to actually close on it if you do go and give the seller a buy number for that house.
I find that most buyers that are real buyers, they only want you to feed them deals anyway. That's what they want, because most rehabbers don't have the resources to wholesale, and most wholesalers don't have the resources to rehab, right? So we need each other. We have this kind of dichotomy that goes on, that we need each other, which in my opinion, kind of holds the pricing down so that you're not jamming up that rehabber. And of course, if you got a sweet deal that you negotiated before they ever saw the house, let's say you're at 50 and he'll buy that house all day for 100. Those are some big numbers, right? 50,000 on a wholesale deal is rare in Michigan, just because our price points are low. But if you give that deal to that rehabber and he doesn't flinch at your wholesale fee, that's the guy you want to sell to, because he's not caring about the price. And it becomes a trust issue that you can give him your 50,000 contract and that 50,000 assignment doc, and he doesn't squawk. He signs it, sends it back, and goes to close. And then he doesn't whine at you at the closing or call you later and say, hey, no, give me the next deal better. If he starts doing that, you just let that guy is in your regular pool. You just put him back in the big pond with the rest of them. And then you got your core guys that you can trust to do deals.
There's
all of us.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, all of us that wholesale any kind of volume, we all know there's only 5 or 6 of them that buy all day, right? you don't need a 5,000 name list to sell houses. You only need 5 or 6 good ones. And then when those guys won't take those deals that are kind of skinny, then the rest of the pool kind of chimes in on that, you know, because that guy that does 2 or 3 houses a year, he'll pay an extra couple bucks for a house. And,
Mhm.
and if that's the difference between you actually acquiring it and selling it to him, you know, you make $3,000 instead of 10. Hey, it's another deal under your belt and another deal that you went through. And maybe you got some title issues. You learned something from it on how to deal with that title problem. All of it is valuable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing like having 2 or 3 people, you know, that you could bring with you, one person to the appointment and they're going to buy the deal. I mean, that's speed for you. Like you said, you could go in there with confidence and you could get the deal at a good price, and you could say, look, I could close next week. You know, there's nothing like that.
Now to step back a few spots, because obviously we jumped right to the closing, right?
Right.
I mean, how do you send that out to your list? What should that look like? Because I'm on lots of guys' wholesale lists too. And I do that more to kind of see what's hanging out there and what the pricing may be. I'm not looking to buy wholesale deals necessarily, but I like to see what's active. That email that you send out, or a text or whatever, however you're going to send it to your buyers list, needs to be simple. It needs to have the address in the header with the price. Always put the address with the price in the subject line, so that rehabber who has got no time to do anything because he's running around yelling at his contractors, he just wants to see the address and the price. And in the body of the email, put the photo first. Underneath the photo, put the address again with the price again, and then put bullet points of the highlights of the house: bedrooms, baths, basement, garage, lot size. And then in a paragraph, put without any hype, put in maybe the problems with the house, because there's nothing worse than a rehabber getting excited about a house and then you forgot to tell them about the basement leak, or about the corner of the garage is sagging, or whatever major thing might be wrong. Because if you do that once or twice, he's not going to look at your deals anymore. It's just that simple. So if you make it as plain and generic as possible, with no exclamation points and, oh my gosh, it's going to be gone tomorrow, all of that stuff. I know that's tempting to do that. I prefer not to do that. And I get comments all of the time with my email blasts that they like the fact that it's just details. There's not a lot of pressure tactic.
Yeah.
They don't
have pressure tactic. They don't want to deal with that.
No. And I always prefer that I don't put ARVs and or repair estimates in my emails. You need to let that rehabber figure that out for himself, because you don't want to, just like you don't want to anchor the seller, you don't want to anchor the rehabber. The price is the price. Because he's going to vet it. Any guy that's worth his salt, he's going to vet that deal no matter how much information you give him anyway. And then always take as many photos as you can at that property when you're with the seller and you get that contract. Is take 200 photos if you have to. I usually do it in some sort of methodical way, like front,